So, hi everyone. Thanks for carving some time out of your day to join us for this PR Club webinar. My name is Kelsey. I'm an account supervisor at March Communications. I'm also a member of the PR Club programs team, which is the group responsible for putting on all of these great events for the PR community. Today we'll be talking about landing PR internships in the time of COVID. Which I think is a particularly important topic to discuss, especially right now. But before we jump in, I just have a couple housekeeping items. So as Sherry and I were discussing, all of the participants will be muted throughout the discussion. There will be a short Q&A at the end of the panel, so please feel free to submit questions throughout the talk via that Q&A form below, or even the chat box if that's easiest. And then I will turn it over to Sherry at the end of the discussion to cycle through those, and we'll see how many we can get through. So with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Sherry Lynch. Sherry is an assistant professor of experiential learning and an internship coordinator at Endicott College. She works with students to help facilitate academic internships, develops employer partnerships and leads, and teaches professional practice courses in the freshman through senior year. Sherry, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the panelists today.
Great, thanks so much for that introduction. And so today we are going to have a great panel of experts that are going to be able to answer a lot of questions around this big changed world that we now live in as we try to navigate internships. And so we'll jump right in since we have not a huge amount of time today. So let's start with Allison Quinby. She is the Vice President of People and Culture at Solomon McCowan and Kent.
Yep, Sensi. Thank you, Sherry.
Sensi,
yep, no.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm the VP of People and Culture at Solomon McCowan Sensi. Very happy to be here with you all today. We are a strategic communications firm based in Boston. And my role at the firm is to find ways really to kind of enhance our company culture, as well as support our staff mentorship and growth, including helping to develop new tools and techniques for professional development at all levels of the organization.
Perfect. Thank you, Allison. And now John Guilfoyle, principal at JGPR.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for including me today. Yeah, I'm the president and principal of JGPR. We are a full-service public relations firm and communications consultancy that specializes in municipal government, police, fire, public schools, and public health. So we've been quite busy the last year and a half or so. We currently have 5 interns working at our company and 14 employees total. So we have dramatically increased the amount of interns we've taken on, partially because I also teach at both LaSalle and Northeastern, and we've seen some of the challenges our students have had this semester. So we've actually ramped up our efforts to recruit interns. So happy to be here. Hope there's a lot of good questions.
Thanks so much. And our final panelist is Pat Nelson, Director of Career Services from Boston University College of Communication.
Thanks, Sherry. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Again, I'm the Director of Career Services at BU's College of Communication, overseeing all aspects of our students' career development. Obviously, a huge subset of those students are fantastic PR students. So a big part of what we do is work to help establish relationships with companies and PR agencies to help leverage those internship opportunities. So very excited to talk with you all today.
Thank you. Thank you, John. So today's topic is, I think, very timely, as so many students are just right now really preparing for a summer internship or maybe a co-op and trying to understand better how they should both, go about approaching organizations, and then really trying to understand what it's going to look like and how their performance might be, and might be different from their experiences in the past. This past year, we did see so many programs change, some that halted completely, some that went remote, hybrid, and some that were carefully constructed in-person experiences. So looking forward to some questions from our panel today about just how, what advice you might have as students navigate this. So we're going to run through the questions and each person will have a chance to give a response. Perhaps we can go with John and then Allison and then Patrick. So first question, how has the job market shifted throughout the course of the pandemic? And then how do you see the role of the intern having to adapt to meet those demands? So the change and then the adaptation.
So certainly this is the biggest change. We would be doing this in person in another age. Remote education, remote work has become either the substitute for now, or it might be part of the norm in the future, at least part of the way for many employers. But I've been saying this for a while now in the media, whether you're in PR or journalism, you really have to separate yourself from the pack. You have to show how driven and dedicated you are. You have to stand out in the best of times. So I would say that I would urge that we all know that the Zoom age has emerged here, and that's the biggest change right now. I would also say two things. One, that there are probably going to be increased demands for some levels of interns, especially as companies begin to restart operations. And you also have some companies that have laid off. PR is not exempt from that. PR has had some layoffs, and journalism certainly has as well, and furloughs. So there may be increased opportunities for you as a college student to go and get your resume built up. Then I would say the other thing is something that has not changed, and that is you still have to act, look, and be the part. Just because you're wearing a hoodie and sweatpants all day long for your classes does not mean you're going to wear that for an interview over Zoom. You still have to dress the part. It's still suits and ties for men. It's still business attire for women for the interview process and for the work process, even if you're remote, especially if you're an intern, unless you're explicitly told otherwise. But for an interview, I would say you definitely want to make sure you don't forget the basic fundamentals of job seeking that you should have learned freshman year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add that we've found at Solomon County and Sensi that we're seeing an influx actually of applications for internships because kids are either living at home and so they're not living at school, so they have more flexibility in their schedule, or maybe just even working kind of in their rooms at school and not going straight to class. They still have more flexibility, and they're trying to utilize that time that maybe they didn't have before to get ahead, get more experience. And it's also allowing them to apply for internships and work with companies, not just necessarily in their hometown or where their college is. I think the opportunities have broadened a lot because of the remote nature of this and the fact that they can be applying to internships at any firm, around the country probably.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about some of the challenges that have been, some of the opportunities that have been opened up with the challenges.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, since the pandemic began and back in February and March, I think we're seeing the job market is improving. We've gone through so many different stages of, canceling programs to bringing them back and moving them into a hybrid model or strictly remote. But I see more and more PR agencies, at least in Boston, begin those conversations and want to bring in more full-time employees, which is great. And I think as we became remote and settled into the remote setting over the summer, you saw agencies get more comfortable with their remote settings and their work that they were doing. And I think they became more comfortable to bring on interns. And one bright side was that I think I saw several agencies that I worked with become more comfortable with keeping them on through the fall because it was easier to keep them in that virtual environment. But in terms of adapting to this environment, I think a lot of employers have really valued those soft skills that PR students are known for, even more so than ever, in terms of adaptability, being flexible, being available for when things come up. Am I going to be able to access you virtually and remotely? Because if you were in-house, I'd be able to walk down the hallway or shoot you an email or be able to reach you. So I think those are some of the ways that our PR students have been asked to adapt to this evolving process.
Yeah. And John, you spoke a little bit about the search process and how that changed, having to, think about different things in the interview process. Can you all speak to just the search strategy a little bit more, and what you see as really critical with this new COVID world?
So I've also been pretty vocal about making sure that your digital footprint is as clean and professional as possible. And we deal with public schools a lot in my company, and we've had a tremendous influx in things being said, done, and posted on social media that will haunt you for the rest of your life. There's no other way to put that. And I'm sure Patrick, working at a college, has probably seen his fair share of that. First things first, go through your social media profiles and delete anything you don't want an employer to find. Your privacy settings are irrelevant. They don't affect it. We do find it, especially if you apply to a public sector job where they will get the legal right to access your digital footprint. I would also say, if nothing else, get on LinkedIn. It's often overlooked by college students because you're on so many platforms, but LinkedIn is the #1 way to network professionally in the COVID era, because we can interact with each other in a purely networking, purely professional environment with nothing else distracting us except for who you are and what your skills are and what you're looking to do in your career. So clean it up and get a LinkedIn are my 2 tidbits there.
I would also add that some students create a separate professional profile for themselves to kind of demonstrate their expertise. So whether or not that's different handles altogether or creating an online portfolio is also a great idea. That could showcase their work, anything that they've written, social media posts that they've created, any design work. There are a lot of good sites out there like Squarespace that have templates that people can use and, create a site for themselves in a, pretty relevantly short amount of time.
I think those are both great points, cleaning up your social footprint and enhancing the elements of the online features that you can do to enhance yourself, like LinkedIn and Squarespace. And I think that, one thing that I found a lot of success with our PR students is that during these times where there aren't as many internships or as many entry-level jobs as they're used to seeing, it's worth looking for the company and not necessarily the job or internship itself. And what I mean by that is that if you make a list of these target companies, either geographically or in your markets where you want to be, work on platforms like LinkedIn to connect with alumni at those companies, you can build a network that's underneath yourself, a strong foundation, so that when and if those opportunities do open up, you will have all these relationships at these places who can vouch for you, who will want to be a better resource to you. Obviously, there's the right way to do that and a right way and a wrong way to do that in terms of building those connections. But I've found that that's been a very proactive element in this evolving type of search, is that, making these relationships and looking for the companies and not necessarily the jobs.
And then, of course, make sure you know everything about that company. Just like so you've been talking about for years. If you're interviewing at a company, you know about that company, who they serve, who their clients are, who their founders are. These are people who have spent a lot of their lives building a company, or 2 or 3 in some cases. Really know who they are and what they've done. And also, don't shy away from the old handwritten thank you note. I remember every single one that I've received from an applicant or an intern. It's one of the best things you can do because there's so few things written by hand nowadays.
Beautiful, beautiful tips. I love them all. How has the pandemic impacted hiring and interviewing within the company itself? Anyone who wants to jump on that?
I can start off. I can say that, so for us at Solomon Accountant Sensi, instead of hiring full-time students right out of college to be account coordinators, that's our entry-level position, we're actually having them do internships instead first, that are around maybe 3-4 months long. just because interviewing people virtually or over the phone can often really not feel as effective. So we're really using this period to make sure that students are a fit. Um, and I would also add that now kind of some of our interview questions even have really changed. A lot more is about how self-sufficient someone can be. How do you work in a virtual remote environment? How do you stay motivated? What makes you continue to feel energized throughout the day? Things like that.
Those are great. I'll add that we're doing something fairly similar at JGPR. We have what's called a junior account coordinator. It's something that we don't see a lot of, but we'll take on an intern or a co-op with the expressed interest in seeing if they would be a good fit with the company long term as an account coordinator. We've also developed several copywriting roles, which we've seen as a way for journalism students or mid-career young or early career journalists to transition into PR because of their amazing writing background. So I would say with that regard, hiring has certainly been affected, but there is an increased need for skills. Our company has added a number of staff during the pandemic because of the need for rapid deployment of websites and rapid production of video, not even media relations as much as it used to be. So if you're a student who is very good at video editing and you can shoot and use a real video camera, that skill is going to make you money the day you graduate or before. Same with web design, HTML, WordPress, JavaScript. Those skills are going to really pay off for you.
As someone working in career services, I'm very high on these sort of feeler programs that we're seeing more and more companies implement. It's not an internship, but not a full-time job, more of a rotational program, or there's several different terms used to cover them, but it's a great opportunity for all parties to really feel each other out. And what I try to tell our students is that these programs, these post-grad opportunities are so fantastic, and the employers would not dedicate these type of resources to you if they didn't want them to work out and hopefully try to hire you. And not every internship program is like that. So we're very high on those right now. And in terms of the interview changing, I think as Allison kind of touched on, it used to be first as a phone interview, then a in-person, then a second round, sometimes further, but usually after that, references and offers. But now an added element is we're seeing more and more of those video recordings that you have to do as your first round, which can be very difficult for students to navigate and very challenging, and certainly create a further level of a lack of intimacy that we have during this virtual process. So more and more with larger exclusive companies with huge applicant pools. But one thing that students, I think, can do to best prepare themselves is practice on those platforms where they're prompted with questions and recorded as their first round of screening.
Super. All of those are so important. Another just question around digital presence. So and we talked a little bit about LinkedIn, using that, and there was a suggestion about developing a portfolio. Would you offer any additional thoughts into how students can, best enhance their online presence and really show themselves in their best light? Or perhaps talking about their social networks and how they can optimize the potential there.
So I think that the portfolio websites can be useful. I think that they can be overdone in some cases. I would say a portfolio website is something that you really should be using to show off your portfolio, not your schoolwork. There are opportunities for schoolwork to be used, certainly, especially if you're writing complete press releases in AP style with the right formatting. But just to show off your command of the English language, it doesn't really move the bar or move the needle for employers. But again, if you have graphic design skills, infographic skills, video skills, and you've done some produced pieces, that's definitely a useful avenue. WordPress over Wix WordPress.com would be your first best bet to make a professional website, not GoDaddy, not Wix, not some of the other ones that are out there, Squarespace and things like that. They're fine, but WordPress is frankly better. And we use it. It powers about 40% of the internet. So if we use it, we're going to want you to use it as well. LinkedIn, get a real good picture taken of yourself. You only get one on LinkedIn, so make sure your eyes are open. Make sure make sure you're dressed the way you want an employer to see you. Make sure it's a professional, almost headshot. And if you have a photography student that you're friends with, have them take your headshot. Take a real one. That's the first thing people see, is how you are showing yourself on your LinkedIn profile and on your portfolio website.
I love that suggestion to think about, how you can show the skills that you have, right? Through this, through all of the communication materials that you develop. It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. And I think, it's easy to build a good LinkedIn profile if you do it the right way. I think the biggest thing is knowing just the broader capacities of LinkedIn itself and what it's really there for. It's not just a profile that you build and it's stagnant and you connect with your classmates and friends and employers from previous jobs. You have to use it to try to appropriately connect with people in your fields to advance yourself. And I could go on about that all day, but great comments about the portfolio, John. I think it's important that your portfolio showcases incredible work that you've done to advance yourself. You don't ever want to apply to a role that says, we're only asking for your resume and cover letter, but you share your portfolio with us too. And now I look at, and I thought your resume and cover letter were great, but I looked at your portfolio and it's just classwork from sophomore year. That's kind of makes me think, well, maybe you're not ready. So if you are doing anything extra that a company is asking for, make sure that the extra things are incredible.
And that's a good question to ask in your interviews, because we are hiring a lot of interns, and you don't have to always take the first one that comes along. The question, we leave that time during interview for you to ask us questions. You inevitably stare at us like you're deer in headlights. Great question to ask is, will I be producing work, published work? Will I be writing press releases? I'm a video person. Am I going to make video? Am I going to come out of this with a portfolio of work? What do you see my day-to-day work being? We like that. We like to know that we have interns that want to do work, that don't just want to come in and or sit on Zoom and listen all day. So I think it's a big part of it.
And I agree that online portfolio that just showcases your schoolwork, that's gonna show an employer that you didn't have much else to put on there. However, I would say even in the last 2-3 years, I feel like the resumes that we get for interns, less and less do they have traditional PR agency experience. A lot of it is social. A lot of people have these very unique skill sets, whether or not it's creating video or it is knowing how to do online advertising, or it is graphic design, or maybe they have their own blog that they've created years ago and still been writing for consistently. Maybe they created their own podcast. A lot of students nowadays are doing all of these other things on their own in their own time, and that's the type of initiative that we like to see.
Yeah.
And that we find impressive.
We're also getting a ton of J school applicants right now. Students, undergraduate and graduate, who are in journalism school or majoring in journalism. One thing that the last 12 or 13 months has really done is it has really hurt the perception of the prospects of hiring in the journalism field with the furloughs and layoffs. Gatehouse Gannett did a 1/4 furlough for all of its newsroom staff last year, and Alden Capital just bought the Tribune Group. So there are more and more parents questioning. I don't question. I think it's a very valuable pursuit for your education, your career. But we are getting a lot of journalism students applying for PR internships or giving us a resume that only has journalism experience. Don't worry. The skills are important. The ability to communicate as a journalist is extremely useful, and it translates into PR. I never worked at a PR agency. I was 7 years at the Boston Globe and 2 years at Mayor Menino as deputy press secretary before I founded this firm. So I would be the first to tell you that if you think that you're going to make $28,000 a year in journalism your whole life, You don't have to do that. You can go in. PR is a viable and wonderful professional career opportunity for young people and people in mid-career.
Yeah, we love to see students who have journalism experience or that's their major, especially being in PR, obviously writing and is a huge part of what we do. And obviously, you have some experience into understanding how reporters think. And especially at that young age, having that experience and then getting agency experience and then going into the workforce full time and trying to, get a job. Then you can actually speak from the perspective of having been a journalist as well as kind of the flip side of working at an agency. And you can kind of combine your expertise of what you've learned between the two to make yourself more attractive to employers, I believe.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Big question here. So if you had to say, what would be the number one tip you would give for students to stand out and to set themselves apart from their competition in applying for an internship? What would that be?
I would say, believe it or not, your cover letter matters. And you're usually saying that cover letter either as an attachment or in the body of an email. One of the things I look for and one of the things I teach undergrads extensively is write in complete sentences and write your emails as if you were composing a letter. We in this digital age with texting and everything and social media, we're writing a lot of shorthand abbreviations and things like that. Don't do any of that. Sit down, dear Mr. or Ms. or so-and-so. I am seeking, write a complete sentence in that email. Even if you're attaching it as a cover letter resume file, write an email that's a complete letter, with an opening and a closing. It shows that you're maybe a bit more mature and ready for the job market.
I would say it's hard to pick just one, so I'm going to name just a few. I'd say that if students can talk to people in the industry first before they have an interview, I would always highly recommend that because sometimes they'll use buzzwords or jargon, but not always use them correctly, which people notice and that stands out. I'd say in terms of standing out, we had one intern from Syracuse call us directly multiple times a few months ago and throughout the pandemic directly, versus just sending an email, which I believe shows initiative, and we like to see that as well. Like we said earlier before, enthusiasm and research into the company, knowing, who some of the clients are, reading their blog, listening to the podcast, as well as a unique answer maybe as to why they're interested in PR, especially now. Maybe there's a unique COVID inspired answer to that we always would be interested to hear.
Yeah, again, great points. I think I have a couple too, but cover letter's huge. Not just regurgitating your resume. I have your resume, I read it. Walk me through your experience and tell me your story. Your cover letter is your place where you make yourself make sense to me hiring you. And if you're able to show your strength in writing, walk me through your experience and what occurred to you at each opportunity, and also articulating your knowledge of the employer, your knowledge of the position, and why you are a perfect fit for that. That's a huge piece that a lot of students miss. And I think because they're so anxious and eager to tell you all the reasons why they're qualified, they use the whole cover letter doing so. But if you can briefly tell me your experience, then make it make sense and talk to me about why you want to apply here and why you want to apply for this role and why it was made for you. That's an excellent way to write a cover letter. And then I think also in terms of those informational conversations, those are huge as well. And being able to honestly create relationships that are strictly informational and that you aren't looking for anything more other than building a relationship, learning from these people. Those are the sincere relationships that are going to benefit you the most and that will lead you to more opportunities rather than saying, I applied for this internship. I know you're an alum. How can you help me get there?
That's
I would
right.
also add one more thing. It seems very simple, but show that you read the news.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes without saying, but we can tell sometimes if not, but dropping in, I read the Boston Globe every day. I saw this story, last week that reminded me of X, Y, and Z. Those types of things go a long way, especially in PR.
Shows you're curious and shows that, your job is your job and you're interested in your job, but you have a little more of an interest than just a professional one. This is something that keeps you curious and thinking throughout your time.
And in that vein, the cover letter Patrick was talking about, that you don't have one cover letter. If you email me a resume or cover letter, I download it, and a cover letter says created in 2019, I'm going to know. I'm going to see that. I'm going to see you didn't bother changing it. Your cover letter should be custom for the job, and it should be talking not just about you, but why you should have that job.
I just have a quick follow-up. We do have, I think we had a couple of questions in the chat that have been a little bit addressed along the way. I just wanted to add in, there was a lot of conversation around using your network, doing that pre-research, finding connections, finding ways to talk to people inside of organizations before you actually might be even asked in for an interview. But thinking about peer networks is so important, right? Students starting to understand that this is their future professional network. Any comments about how students can tap into that?
Yeah, I'd say that people want to help now more than ever, especially maybe someone who also went to your same alma mater, so use LinkedIn to find, people who maybe went to your school, graduate, undergraduate, even high school maybe, or who work in places that, really you see opportunities. They're more likely to advocate on your behalf if you share that common thing. We always, when you get older and you're interviewing with reporters, we always look at reporters' profiles at like their interesting, unique fact about themselves to be able to even understand that about them and bring that up during an interview to create that personal connection. So in the same way here, kind of doing that, but at a different level when it comes to recruiting and just trying to, find a new internship or job.
As an undergrad, you are supposed to get so much more out of the experience than just your coursework and your grades. At high school, your grades were drilled into your head, and it's such a bad approach, because I get freshmen in my classes that are obsessed with the score on their homework, and a 98 is not good enough. Get over that. Your grades don't matter anymore, folks. You don't fail your classes, but you don't need a 4.0 to be successful in any career, maybe except medicine. I don't think I've ever looked at the GPA of a student that's applied unless it was really obvious, 4.0 or 1 point something. You want to get good grades. I don't mean to discredit that, but we hire the person. We have people that have not finished college working for us. We have people with advanced degrees working for us. Not only should Allison, Patrick, and I be getting a number of LinkedIn requests, but you should be doing that in your classes. I've been adjunct for 11 years. I've taught 21 consecutive semesters of classes. And at the end of the semester, I say the same thing. And I love being an adjunct for this reason. I don't work full time for the school. So when the class ends, I have no power over my undergrads anymore. I'm not the professor that they're going to see in the hallway. I'm just another colleague trying to make it in the same field as them. And if you as an undergraduate choose to continue and build those relationships with people that you've encountered over the course of your undergrad, you're going to get so much more out of that than a transcript and a diploma. And I really hope that you're looking at your undergrad years for that and not just the pieces of paper, because they're not everything.
Yeah. I think you both hit everything you can on peer networks there. And one thing I'll say is that you never know what you're going to get out of one. And what I mean is, for example, just thinking of one, but our BU's chapter of the Public Relations Student Society of America. I tell students who are just, dipping their toes into PR, just go to the meetings, and whether it's an interesting subject or not a great guest, or you weren't into it, this is where those conversations are happening. And maybe next week is better, but you don't know what students you're going to meet there and what they did last summer and what relationship they might already have, or what advice they might have for you moving forward. Given your goals as a sophomore, you might run into a senior who has that internship currently that you want to get down the road, but you wouldn't know that if you weren't at that meeting. So if you pursue and immerse yourselves in these peer networks, as you were saying, you never know what's going to come out of any given meeting or any group involvement or activity together.
So true, right? That student who's next to you in that meeting could be, you know, working in a company that you want to
Yeah.
work for when you graduate, or on the
Spend
hiring
all this
committee.
time looking for internships and striking out, but it's going to be the person you run to at that group meeting that actually is impactful for you.
All right, so if anyone has a question that they would like to bring, please put it in the chat or in the Q&A for us. We had a couple. There was a question about journalism, and I think, you know, how it's related to PR. I think we covered that a bit. I wanted to jump to a question about a transition into PR. So the question is, I am a graduate student that is pivoting into PR from military intelligence. I am worried that my resume is getting lost because I have 9 years of intel experience without PR experience. What do you recommend?
I can start from a career perspective. Anytime you make a transition, you want to be able to start rebranding your resume in the direction that you want to go in. So the first step is, now this is a very, very unique field in military intelligence, but if there's any areas within there that you think you can enhance PR elements, start pulling those out. And in your master's degree, go for the easy wins that you can to get some PR on your resume. Join those student groups, throw it on there. Take some professional courses, take some PR courses that are more geared towards, professional development. Those things will start to get you looked at for your first internship, but you don't have to completely hide away from who you are. I think what you need to do is take where you've been and what you've done and sell that and brand it in the direction and show me, again, as I said about cover letters, how can you make yourself make sense to me?
I mean, I agree. I would say, and I think John answered this a little bit in the chat, but I agree that I don't think employers, I think they gravitate towards military experiences, to be totally honest with you. I think that everyone has a lot of respect for that, and people are very curious in learning more about you and wanting to speak with you. I think that, yeah, doing the most that you can on the side to put things on your resume, but it may just be the type of thing where you have to just expect that maybe you'd be coming in at a little bit of a lower position, you know, and having to then work your way up just so you learn the basics of PR. But I don't think that shying away from your military experience is a good thing. I think that you should definitely not be scared to throw that on there and to talk about it, because employers do gravitate towards it, as John said.
I think the consistency of 9 years, in your one case, Nicole, 9 years in military intelligence, that's a great LinkedIn headline, decorated military intelligence veteran transitioning into public relations. I would read that. So don't shy away from that. I also think that the longevity, the 9 years, is a bit of a good thing. It's a green flag for us, because I've turned away applicants who have voluntarily quit multiple jobs in 2 or 3 years. I had some applicants for a recent hire over the last 2 years that had 4 jobs in 2 years that they left all 4 voluntarily, and not laid off, not economically, that just they left. We don't want flight risks in PR.
Yeah.
We're not going to stay forever in the media, but I think having 9 years in the same role shows that you commit yourself to something. Take a certificate program. They're cheap, a couple $1,000s. You can go to Northeastern, Harvard, Cornell, BU, and take one of these PR certificate programs fully online, and you can change your resume to reflect the actual coursework and completion of coursework in PR. It'll be a great start for you. I also love grad school. I'm a big proponent of going to grad school for journalism and public relations. It's also a master's degree is a terminal degree in our fields, so it's about as good as it gets. There are PhDs, but most people finish at masters in journalism and PR. So I think it's something worth pursuing.
And a question from an international student who does not have PR experience, but has coursework under her belt. How can an international student stand out when applying for PR internships?
I would say that the number one thing a lot of students who may have trouble getting hired would do as an intern is make sure you are able to obtain credit from your college for the coursework. A lot of employers cannot hire international students for wage. So you may want to just make sure it's clear that you are in a credit-seeking internship program, and that you are an undergraduate essentially starting out in the field. We don't shy away from entry-level people in internships for PR. We want to know if you're a person that can work in this field, and that's how we learn it. So don't shy away from it, but maybe make it a bit more obvious that that you are hireable.
We have one question about digital portfolios. Do you like the case study format with a problem and solution, or would you prefer to see a straight showcase of tactical excellence in a narrative?
I think both are excellent. Being able to, showing a case study is an excellent way to repackage something you might have done in the classroom in a more professional manner. And those are very interesting to follow and read through and understand. But I think obviously showcasing your actual skills and your work and editing and copy, all of that is, if either or is great. I think, as we said earlier, the biggest thing is just to shy away from something that's blatantly a student, assignment that's not related to the field you're going into.
Yeah, I agree. I think it can be a combination of both and kind of depend upon what specifically you're writing about. I will say that just at organizations, we're writing case studies all the time ourselves, and for our clients and for the work that we do for our clients. So if you can show on your digital portfolio that you can write a succinct and well done case study there, that stands out in and of itself in a different way, to show us that you can write in that manner, which is already attractive to us.
I agree, and also make it as visual, make your portfolio website as visual and easy to follow as possible. I do recommend also keeping a clip file. Anything you've ever had published anywhere, you have it. First of all, make sure your employers know you've been in the Globe or the Herald or Gatehouse papers. Make sure your actual clips that have been published, those are so much more valuable than anything else that you can do in journalism for a journalism internship, and they're equally valuable in PR. That if there's a press release you wrote for one of your internships and it's on a client's website, own that, put the link to that, and make sure they know that you wrote that.
One last question. What are the most important skills to get a graduate position? And maybe I'm not sure if that's one of those post-grad internships that you were talking about earlier. It may be. Maybe in addition to writing. So what are important skills besides the writing?
Yeah, every PR firm is different. We have seen a dramatic shift to what we call owned media. In my brand of PR, earned media has become a premium, and in some cases is not a primary get or ask, even for our clients who typically want their owned media is what you publish as a client. Earned media is what a reporter produces about your client. You've seen a huge shift to owned media. So the skills are obvious. You have to be able to write AP style, English grammar, inverted pyramid. You have to be able to do the writing, but yeah, taking a picture the right way, editing a picture, using something beyond Canva, but also having Canva skills and video. Photo, video, and writing are the three most important things. With the overarching thing on top of it, your interpersonal skills. The first assignment I give all introductory PR and journalism students is what we call person on the street. Go out and talk to strangers, ask them questions, get them to talk to you. You have to be able to talk to people face to face to be successful in this industry.
Terrific. I think we are out of time. This was an incredibly informative session. Thank you to thank you for all of your time with that. And thank you, Kelsey.
No problem. Thank you guys for joining today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank
very
you.
much.
All right. Well, this concludes the panel. If there are any follow-up questions that anybody has, feel free to submit them to the PR Club email alias, and we can forward them along. But other than that, thanks everybody, and have a great day.
Great.
You all be well.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.